Ram the gate. Those three words tore through the thick tension like a lightning strike. A war cry. The engine of Engine 42 roared in response, its headlights piercing through the swirling smoke and bitter night air. With a gut-wrenching groan of twisting metal, the gleaming steel barrier gave way. Sparks exploded into the darkness as the once-prized Homeowners Association gate, personally designed and commissioned by Harold Kensington, was reduced to a mangled wreck, skidding across his perfectly trimmed emerald lawn. Somewhere behind that demolished shrine to control and power, Harold's face twisted in stunned horror. But none of that mattered, because there was a house burning, and inside it, an elderly woman and her grandson were trapped. 10 minutes earlier, the night had been quiet, serene even. Suburban streets lay in stillness, their faint lamplight illuminating meticulously maintained driveways and postage stamp front lawns. There was a hum in the air, the steady, almost hypnotic rhythm of sprinklers and the distant whir of someone's late-night television. I was riding shotgun in Engine 42, a favor granted by my aunt, Fire Chief Melanie Grant. She called it a ride-along, but I knew it was her way of pulling me out of a deep college-induced burnout. Between finals and essays, my brain felt like scrambled eggs, and she figured a night watching the crew work might clear my head. I wasn't expecting to smell smoke. It hit us fast, sharp, acrid, and unmistakable. A split second later, the call came through dispatch. Structure fire. Meadowlark Court. 2 occupants reported inside. Repeat, 2 trapped inside. Melanie didn't waste time. Engine 42's siren screamed as we tore through the quiet streets, tires biting the asphalt with urgency. As we turned onto Meadowlark Court, we saw the flames before we saw the house. Fire licked out of the second-story window, smoke boiling into the sky like a black mushroom cloud. But there was something else. A gate. A massive, reinforced steel gate. "Tell me you're kidding," one of the firefighters muttered. No one was kidding. It was Kensington's new security system, a fortress of steel and wires controlled by an oversized keypad and biometric scanner. Melanie punched in the universal emergency override. Rejected. She tried again. Rejected. "We've got no entry," she barked. Dispatch tried calling Harold Kensington directly, but he wasn't answering. His house was nearby, but he might as well have been on the moon. A handful of residents had gathered on their porches, eyes wide, watching helplessly as the house on fire spat smoke and sparks into the cold night. And then his voice came through the radio, smooth as silk, oozing smugness. "I'm sorry, but HOA policy requires prior authorization for gate access. You understand, of course. Rules are rules." You could have heard a pin drop. Even the fire seemed to pause, crackling in anticipation. Melanie exhaled through her nose. Slowly, deliberately. I recognized the look on her face. She was choosing between sarcasm and rage. It was a coin toss, but there wasn't time. She chose neither. "Ram the gate," she said. The engine surged. "Tira spoon." The metal groaned in protest before exploding apart. It felt like slow motion. Sparks, shrieking steel, and the crunch of Harold Kensington's vanity project crumbling into worthless debris. The rescue. But we didn't stop to savor the moment. The house was alive with fire. Flames devoured the wooden siding and smashed through second-floor windows. You could hear the groans of the roof starting to buckle. Inside, someone was coughing, a faint, ragged sound just audible over the roar of the inferno. The team moved fast. Hoses uncoiled, water blasting in through shattered glass. Axes splintered the front door in less time than it took to blink. Smoke rolled through the entryway, thick as tar, and visibility dropped to near zero. I wasn't supposed to follow them in, but I did. I ducked low, following the shapes of the crew ahead of me through the haze. There under the kitchen table was a boy, 7 or 8 years old, curled into himself, his arms around his knees. His face smeared with soot, his eyes wide but dazed. "Got you," I whispered. I wasn't sure he could hear me, but his fingers latched onto my arm like a lifeline. His grandmother lay nearby, unconscious on the linoleum floor. 2 firefighters got to her seconds later. We moved fast, dragging, carrying, hauling them out into the open air. And then the roof groaned again, one last warning. I ran. I didn't think. I ran like hell. We hit the front yard, just as the roof collapsed behind us. The boy cried into my jacket. I held him, gasping for breath, trying to steady both of us. Confrontation. Across the street, Harold Kensington stood on his pristine porch, wearing a silk robe and an expression that flickered between fury and disbelief. His arms were crossed tightly, his knuckles white. "You'll be paying for that gate," he called out. I turned to find Aunt Melanie already striding toward him. Her boots splashed through puddles of water and ash. Her eyes locked onto Harold with the force of a freight train. The flames reflected in her pupils, and for a second, she looked more dangerous than the fire. "Oh, Harold," she said, voice low and calm. "I wouldn't be so sure about that." He opened his mouth, but the arrival of 2 patrol cars cut him off. The officers took one look around, the scorched house, the shattered gate, the sobbing boy, and turned to Harold with weary disgust. "Mr. Kensington," one officer said, "please tell me you didn't block emergency responders from entering a fire scene." Harold scoffed, the same way he had at HOA meetings when someone dared question him. "It was a technical issue. The system malfunctioned." "Malfunction, my ass," one firefighter muttered, wiping soot from his forehead. Melanie didn't flinch. "Your malfunction nearly killed 2 people. That's not just a policy violation. That's criminal negligence." Fallout. Harold lost a little color, but he rallied. The fire department had no right to damage HOA property, he insisted. Melanie smiled. It was slow, deliberate, like watching a lioness size up her prey. She lifted her radio and spoke clearly. "City Fire Marshal, this is Chief Grant. We got a non-compliant HOA blocking emergency services. Significant property damage. Victims involved. We'll need the city legal team on this." Harold stiffened. "The city?" His voice cracked. "Oh, absolutely," Melanie replied. "And let's not forget the fines. You're going to love those." For the first time, Harold looked genuinely scared. Behind him, HOA board members started whispering. Some edged away. The realization was hitting them hard and fast. They were on the wrong side of this. The fire still smoldered in the background. The wreckage of the gate gleamed under the streetlights like a tombstone for Harold Kensington's reign. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer," Harold snapped before storming back toward his house. Melanie chuckled. "So will you," she murmured. The HOA meltdown. By morning, the HOA was in chaos. An emergency meeting was called at 9 a.m. Sharp. The clubhouse, once Harold's fortress, was packed with board members, residents, and a few spouses dragged in for moral support. Harold sat at the head of the table like a king about to be overthrown. "We need to address the illegal destruction of HOA property," he announced, his fingers steepled. "The reckless behavior of the fire department and the damages they owe us." Silence. Then Bill, an older resident, coughed. "2 people almost died, Harold. And we're relieved they're safe," Harold replied smoothly. "But that doesn't excuse government overreach." The crowd was turning. "Fust." A young man from the back stood up. "Pretty sure the procedure is not letting people burn alive, Harold." Harold ignored him. He pulled out a formal letter. "This is a demand for restitution. $75,000 for the gate." That's when I laughed. I couldn't help it. Every time I tried to stop, I pictured the gate flying off its hinges like a frisbee, Harold screaming in his bathrobe. Harold glared. "Something funny, Alex?" "Oh yeah," I said, wiping my eyes. "You?" He tried to regain control, but the room was slipping away, especially when the clubhouse doors opened and in walked the city legal rep and the state fire marshal. "Judgment Day." "Mr. Kensington," the marshal said. "Yes. You're looking at $500,000 in fines." Harold's jaw dropped. Murmurs turned into shouts. Bill spoke up again, panic rising. "Wait. We all have to pay that." "That's correct," the city rep said. "The HOA is responsible." The room exploded. Residents turned on Harold with fury and fear. Motions were made. Hands were raised. Within minutes, Harold Kensington was removed as HOA president. And then came the final blow. The HOA itself was being dissolved. "You can't do this," Harold cried. "We can," the city rep said. "And we will." Aftermath. The next day, Harold's moving truck arrived. The block party was legendary. Lawn chairs, barbecue, laughter. The couple fined for a festive wreath toasted their freedom. The man forced to repaint his mailbox 3 times gave a speech. But the moment Harold emerged, pale and defeated, the crowd cheered. He muttered something about them not knowing what they'd done. "We know exactly what we've done," someone called back. "We took our neighborhood back." As he drove away, his tires screeching, the fire truck rolled by. Chief Melanie gave him a nod. "Safe travels, Harold." He didn't answer. A new beginning. The gate was never replaced. The entrance was renamed. Emergency Services Access Road. Poetic justice. Neighbors painted their houses new colors. Trash bins stayed out overnight without threats. Holiday lights went up early. And for the first time in years, Meadowlark Court felt like home. Just the way it should have been all along.